There is a strange and exhausting habit we humans have, a habit so common that we scarcely notice it anymore. We rehearse tomorrow's troubles while sitting safely in today. We borrow grief from a future that has not yet arrived and insist on paying interest on it with our peace. Worry feels responsible, even noble, as though by fretting long enough we might somehow earn control. Yet worry is not wisdom dressed in serious clothing. It is fear pretending to be useful. It whispers that everything depends on us, that if we loosen our grip for even a moment, the whole world will collapse into chaos. And so we clench our fists, tighten our minds and exhaust our hearts, all while calling it preparation. But consider this, if God truly is God, then he is not pacing the floor of heaven, wringing his hands, hoping you will finally figure things out. He is not surprised by the letter you have not yet opened, the bill you cannot yet pay, the diagnosis you fear might come, or the prayer that feels as though it has been echoing unanswered. The very idea that your worry could add even a fraction of order to a universe he already sustains is, when examined honestly, rather absurd. And yet absurdity is often where our deepest anxieties live. We worry because we believe, deep down, that the burden of outcomes rests on our shoulders. We imagine that if we stop worrying, we are somehow being careless, as though trust were laziness and rest were irresponsibility. But worry has never solved a single problem. It has never healed a body, restored a relationship, or opened a door at precisely the right time. What it has done, quite consistently, is rob today of its strength while pretending to prepare for tomorrow. It drains the soul under the false promise of control. God's way is altogether different. He does not ask you to pretend problems do not exist. He asks you to stop worshipping them. There is a difference between responsibility and obsession, between thought, full action and anxious fixation. One moves forward with humility, the other runs in circles, growing more tired with each lap. When God invites you to stop worrying, he is not dismissing your pain. He is inviting you to lay down a weight you were never meant to carry in the first place. Think of how often you have looked back on your life and realized that the things you feared most never arrived, in the form you imagined. And the things that did arrive, the real hardships, were met with a strength you did not know you had until the moment required it. That strength did not come from endless worry in advance. It came when it was needed, like daily bread rather than a lifetime supply delivered all at once. God seems almost stubbornly committed to this pattern, giving just enough light for next step, not the entire road, and just enough strength for today, not a decade ahead. This is where trust becomes both simple and difficult. Simple, because the invitation is clear. Stop worrying and watch what God will do. Difficult, because it requires surrendering the illusion of control we have grown so attached to. Worry makes us feel important, as though the universe would unravel with art, our constant supervision. Trust humbles us, reminding us that we are participants in a story far larger than ourselves, not the authors of every chapter. When God sorts things out, he rarely does so according to our preferred schedule. We want immediate resolution, neat endings, and visible progress. God, on the other hand, often works in ways that appear slow, hidden, and even inefficient by human standards. Seeds are buried before they grow. Foundations are laid underground before any structure becomes visible. Silence often precedes clarity. And waiting, though deeply uncomfortable, is not wasted time in God's economy. It is preparation. You may be standing in a season where nothing seems to move, where prayers feel unanswered and doors remain stubbornly closed. Worry tells you stillness is failure, that you must panic, push harder, and force outcomes. Faith whispers something else entirely, that God may be doing his most careful work precisely where you cannot see it. The roots are growing before the branches appear. The plan is unfolding behind the curtain, and your task, difficult as it is not to unravel the mystery, but to remain faithful within it. There is So the matter of perspective. Worry shrinks God until he fits neatly inside our fears. Trust enlarges God until our fears appear, at last, in proper proportion. This does not mean the fears vanish instantly. It means they lose their authority. They no longer dictate your thoughts, your sleep, or your sense of worth. When God is placed back at the center, worry is forced to the margins where it belongs. Consider how often Jesus spoke about worry, not with condemnation but with gentle correction. He pointed to birds that neither sow nor reap, and yet are fed, to flowers that neither toil nor spin, and yet are clothed in beauty. These were not sentimental illustrations, but sharp reminders of reality. If God attends to such things with care, how much more attentive is He to you? Worry, then, is not merely a bad habit, it is a quiet insult to God's character, suggesting that He might forget, overlook, or mishandle your life. Stopping worry does not mean stopping effort. It means redirecting effort from anxious striving to faithful obedience. Do what you can do today, with the resources and wisdom you have today, and then release the outcome. Obedience is your responsibility. Results belong to God. When you confuse the two, you exhaust yourself trying to control what was never yours to manage. There is a peculiar freedom that comes when you finally accept this. Your shoulders relax, your breath deepens, your prayers shift from frantic bargaining to honest conversation. You begin to notice moments of grace you previously missed because your mind was always racing ahead. You disc over that peace is not found at the end of a problem-free life, but in the middle of a God-filled one. God does not promise a life without trouble, but He does promise His presence within it, and presence changes everything. A burden carried alone will crush you. The same burden shared becomes bearable. When God sorts things out, He often starts by sorting you out, untangling your fears, reshaping your desires, and teaching you to rest even when circumstances remain unresolved. This inner work is not a delay, it is part of the solution. You may be tempted to think, this sounds comforting, but my situation is different. That thought itself is worry, wearing a clever disguise. It isolates you, convincing you that your problem lies beyond the reach of grace. Yet history, scripture, and less quiet testimonies tell a different story. God has been sorting out impossible situations long before you arrived on the scene, and He has not lost His ability now. The invitation then is remarkably ordinary and profoundly difficult. Stop worrying, not all at once, not forever in a single heroic act, but moment by moment. Each time worry rises, you notice it, name it, and hand it back to go. You may have to do this hundreds of times a day at first. That is not failure, it is practice. Trust, like any relationship, deepens through repeated choices, not grand gestures. As you practice this surrender, you begin to see small evidences of God's care, a timely word, an unexpected provision, a quiet sense of assurance that arrives without explanation. These are not coincidences, though. Hey often wear that disguise. They are reminders, gentle and persistent, that you are not navigating life alone. And slowly, almost without realizing it, your imagination changes. You stop imagining worst-case scenarios and start imagining faithfulness. You stop asking, what if everything goes wrong? And begin asking, what if God is already at work? This shift does not deny reality. It reinterprets it through hope rather than fear. Still, there will be days when worry feels stronger than faith, when your mind returns to old habits as naturally as breathing. On those days, do not be harsh with yourself. God is not surprised by your weakness. He does not withdraw His care because you struggle to trust. Instead, He meets you there, inviting you once again to release what you are gripping too tightly. It is worth remembering that God's solutions often arrive in forms we would never have chosen. He answers prayers, but sometimes He changes the question first. He opens doors, but occasionally only after closing the ones we were determined to force open. In hindsight, we often see that what felt like delay was actually protection, and what felt like loss was the clearing of space for something better. To watch God sort things out is to accept that His wisdom exceeds yours, not by a small margin, but by an infinite one. This realization is not humiliating, it is relieving. You are finally freed from the exhausting task of playing God over your own life. You are allowed to be human, limited, dependent, and still deeply loved. And so, if you find yourself awake at night rehearsing fears that refuse to quiet, remember this: the darkness does not intimidate God. He does his finest work there. While you lie awake worrying, he remains fully alert, entirely capable, and completely untroubled. The world does not teeter on the edge of collapse because you have stopped worrying. In fact, it may be precisely when you stop worrying that you are finally able to see how steadily he has been holding everything all along. There is a moment, often quiet and easily missed, when worry loosens its grip just enough for trust to slip in. It may come while you are praying, or walking, or simply sitting in silence. In that moment you sense, not with certainty about outcomes, but with confidence about God, that whatever happens, you will not be abandoned. This is not optimism, it is faith grounded in character rather than circumstance. And from that place you can continue forward, not because all your questions have been answered, but because you have decided again and again to place them in hands far steadier than your own. You may still feel the urge to take them back, to analyze, to worry, to plan every possible ending, but time you notice that urge, you are given another chance to release it, because God is not asking you to understand everything. He is asking you to trust him with everything. And even now, in ways you cannot yet trace or explain, he is already at work, arranging details, softening hearts, opening paths, and preparing answers that will arrive at just the right moment. So you can breathe, even her. Even now, knowing that the story is still being written, the outcome is still unfolding, and the God who began this work has not and will not step away from it, not for a single moment. And if you listen closely, beneath the noise of your anxious thoughts, there is a quieter truth steadily repeating itself. You are held, even when you feel uncertain, especially when you feel uncertain. God. Faithfulness does not depend on your emotional steadiness. He does not require you to feel calm in order to act wisely on your behalf. He works just as surely through trembling hands as through confident ones, and sometimes more tenderly so. It is easy to imagine faith as something heroic, a kind of spiritual bravery that never flinches. But real faith, the sort that grows in ordinary lives, of 10 looks much less impressive. It looks like choosing not to panic when panic feels justified. It looks like praying short, honest prayers because longer ones feel impossible. It looks like saying, "I do not understand this," and then resisting the urge to add, "so I must fix it immediately." Faith does not always roar, sometimes it barely whispers, yet God hears it all the same. Worry thrives, the belief that if you replay a problem often enough, you will eventually discover a hidden solution. Trust accepts that some answers are not found by thinking harder, but by waiting longer. This waiting is not passive resignation. It is an active posture of openness, a willingness to let God surprise you. And surprise he often does, though rarely in ways that flatter our expectations. You may notice that God's timing frequently feels inconvenient. He seems unconcerned with your sense of urgency. This can feel almost offensive when the stakes are high and the pain is real. Yet if you look back honestly, you may recognize moments when what you once called late turned out to be just right. The delay that frustrated you spared you from harm you could not then see. The unanswered prayer redirected you toward something truer than what you had demanded. God's silence was not absence but restraint, holding back until you were ready to receive what he intended to give. There is also the matter of identity. Worry often attaches itself to who we think we must be, the provider, the fixer, he one who holds everything together. When God invites you to stop worrying, he is also inviting you to loosen your grip on these self-imposed roles. You are not required to be invincible. You are not expected to carry the weight of everyone's future. You are a child before you are anything else, and children are allowed to rely on their father. This reliance does not diminish you, it restores you. When you stop worrying, you stop living as though love must be earned through exhaustion. You begin to accept that you are cared for not because you perform well, but because you are known. God's attention toward you is not conditional, not fragile, not easily withdrawn. It does not flicker on and off depending on your level of confidence or your success rate at trusting Him. And yet, worry why? I'll try to argue otherwise. It will suggest that if you do not stay alert, vigilant, and tense, something terrible will slip past your notice. But worry is a poor guardian. It exhausts the very strength it claims to protect. Peace, on the other hand, sharpens discernment. A rested soul sees more clearly than an anxious one ever could. As you learn to stop worrying, you may notice resistance, not lie from your thoughts, but from your habits. Worry can become familiar, almost comforting in its predictability. Letting it go can feel like stepping into unfamiliar territory. But unfamiliar does not mean unsafe. Often it means you are finally moving beyond what has quietly imprisoned you. God does not rush this process. He understands how deeply ingrained worry can be. He meets you patiently, again and again as you practice releasing control. Each small act of trust matters. Each decision to pause instead of panic is a quiet victory. Heaven does not measure your faith by its size, but by its direction. Are you turning toward God, even if slowly, even if imperfectly? That is enough. It is also worth remembering that God's work in your life is rarely isolated. While you worry about one outcome, He is weaving together countless others. He is working through conversations you are not part of, circumstances you cannot influence, and hearts you will never fully understand. Your perspective is limited by necessity, His is not. What feels like chaos to you may be coherence to Him, a pattern too vast to grasp from where you stand. This is why worry so often distorts reality. It narrows your vision until the problem fills your entire field of view. Trust widens that vision, reintroducing scale and context. It reminds you that this moment, however intense, is not the whole story. It is a chapter, not the conclusion. And chapters that feel unresolved are often preparing the GRU. For transformation, you may ask, quite reasonably, how to live this way when responsibilities remain and consequences feel real. The answer is not found in detachment, but in alignment. You do what is yours to do, faithfully and honestly, and then you resist the urge to take on what is not yours. You pray, you act, you rest. And when worry tries to reclaim its place, you return once more to rust. Over time, something shifts. The same situations that once triggered immediate anxiety now prompt prayer instead. The same uncertainties that once felt unbearable become spaces where you expect God to move, even if you do not yet know how. You begin to recognize that peace is not the absence of uncertainty, but the presence of God within it. This does not mean you will never worry again. It means worry will no longer be your default language. You will learn another way of responding, one that begins with surrender rather than resistance. And in that surrender, you will find strength that does not depend on favorable circumstances. God's sorting out of your life often happens quietly. There is rarely a dramatic announcement, rarely a clear dividing line between before and after. More often there is a gradual easing, a sense that you are no longer carrying everything alone. Problems may still exist, but they no longer define you. They no longer dictate your inner weather. And perhaps the most surprising part is this. As you stop worrying, you become more present. You notice people more fully, love more freely, and engage more deeply with the moment you are actually in. Worry always pulls you into an imagined future. Trust anchors you in the present, where grace is always available. You may find yourself laughing again, not because everything is solved, but because you remember that joy is not irresponsible. It is an act of defiance against fear. It declares that worry does not get the final word. God does. Even when outcomes differ from what you hoped, you begin to see that God's faithfulness is not measured by your comfort, but by His constancy. He remains with you through disappointment as surely as through delight. He does not abandon you when plans unravel. In fact, he often draws nearer then, not to explain everything, but to accompany you through it. And so the call to stop worrying is not a command delivered from a distance. It is an invitation spoke, from close beside you. It is God saying gently but firmly, "Let me carry this." It is not a test of your spiritual maturity, it is an offer of rest. You may resist that rest at first. You may feel undeserving of it, or afraid of what will happen if you accept it. But rest is not a reward for the faithful, it is a resource for the weary. God offers it precisely because you are tired, precisely because you have been trying to manage what only He can resolve. As you continue forward, you will still encounter uncertainty. Life does not suddenly become predictable, but you will no longer face it alone or unanchored. You will face it with a growing confidence, not in your ability to control outcomes, but in God's ability to redeem them. And somewhere along the way, you will realize that the very act of trusting God to sort things out has been changing you. Your fears have softened, your patience has deepened, your sense of identity has shifted from what you can manage to who you are becoming. The worry that once dominated your inner life now finds less and less space to operate. Because trust, once practiced, expands. It creates room for hope, for gratitude, for a quiet resilience that does not depend on everything going smoothly. And even now, even here, with questions unanswered and paths still unfolding, God remains at work, attentive, deliberate, and faithful beyond measure. And so, when all has been said and the mind still searches for certainty, let this be the PLA. CE where you finally rest. Not because every question has been answered, not because every problem has vanished, but because you have come to understand where the weight truly belongs. It does not belong on your chest, stealing your breath in the quiet hours of the night. It belongs in the hands of God, hands that have never trembled under the burden of the world. You were never asked to foresee every outcome, to prevent every failure, or to hold your life together by sheer force of worry. You were asked to trust, to walk one step at a time, doing what love requires today and releasing tomorrow into care far wiser than your own. When you stop worrying, you do not lose control of your life. You discover that you were never meant to control it in the first place. So breathe deeply, even N. Ow. Let your thoughts slow. Let your heart unclench. What you fear has not outrun God. What you cannot fix has not confused Him. What you cannot see has not escaped His attention. He is already ahead of you, already at work, already arranging what you thought was falling apart. And when you look back one day, you will not marvel at how much you worried, but at how faithfully God carried you through. You will see that the very moments that felt most uncertain were the moments He was shaping you most carefully. Until then, walk forward with quiet confidence, not because the road is easy, but because the one who walks with you is unfailingly good, and He will, in His time, in His way, sort it all out.